Welcome again to the Michael Savage, can I call it a show? Is my life a show? Is your life a show? Well, you're here for a reason because I caught your attention with the headline. The headline is Benevolent Dictators and God Can Change Your Fate in the Blink of an Eye. Now, what does one thing have to do with another? I don't know, but I've had two conflicting or competing ideas for today's performance. Let's call it a performance. This is a performance. If you care to join the conversation and you're watching me on YouTube or on X or on Facebook, you can do so on the comment list. Please keep them on a level of rationality. If they're stupid, I have someone who will go through them and eliminate you forever. So if you want to have an intelligent conversation, go ahead. If you want to be a moron, don't bother because you'll be deleted forever. So I have two they're competing ideas at the same time. One is Benevolent Dictator, where yesterday on my broadcast, which was a Benevolent Dictator, almost in a provocative and mirthful way. And I said, kind of, yeah. I said, and do you want him to have more benevolence and more dictatorship? And I said, let's have more dictatorship and less benevolence. I wasn't being tongue-in-cheek. I was being very real. Say, well, how dare you call for dictatorship? Well, we had a dictatorship under Joe Biden, whoever was running him for years. He was a malevolent dictator. Biden was a malevolent dictator. He started wars, Ukraine, Russia. He arrested innocent people who were standing in the plaza on January 6th. He poisoned the minds of thousands, if not more, of children with the whole trans mania. He hijacked the judicial system and used it for his own advantage. So, yeah, we had a malevolent dictatorship under Biden, and now we're having, at this point, somewhat of a benevolent dictatorship, although it's not really a dictatorship because a dictatorship means that it's absolute power. Biden did not have absolute power, but he took control of the judiciary, which gave him almost absolute power. He owned the press, pimps like Anderson Cooper and Wolf Blitzer. They're prostitutes. Let's call them that. A better word is a prostitute. The media prostitutes were owned by the Democrat machine. They still are. Period. End of story. Okay? It's that simple. We all know that. So today I want to talk about the two things, benevolent dictatorship, to get your attention, because most people are political. They're not spiritual. They don't want to hear spiritual stuff. They want to hear only political. But in order to get you to listen to the spiritual part of today's confused mess of ideas, if you want to call it that, I don't think they're confused. I think that competing ideas complement each other without necessarily overpowering each other. But make believe you're in a graduate school seminar and you like the professor, me. And I came in today and I said, I have two ideas to talk about. One is about benevolent dictators or benevolent dictatorships. And the other is God can change your fate in the blink of an eye. What does one have to do with the other? I'll let you decide. God has already changed your fate in the blink of an eye. I'll give you an example. You were not born in Rwanda in the 1980s. You were not born in Ukraine 18 to 20 years ago, or let's say 20 to 30 years ago. You already were born in the greatest nation on earth at the right time. We're not at war. That we have maniacs who have nothing to do but walk in the street with signs and drums is a mark of their mental illness. They don't know how lucky they are to live in this great country. But we're not at war. We have a man who wants to make peace, and they call him a warmonger. You hear this? Then we had a warmonger who made war and created war, and they called him a good liberal. Liberalism is a mental disorder. So have you ever been in a car wreck and survived? I have. Why? The blink of an eye. I will give you the phrase that I am using lately. Yeshuas Hashem Keref Ayin. God can change your fate in the blink of an eye. You know it and I know it. You know it and I know it. Have you ever survived a heart attack? I have. Have you survived cancer? I haven't, thank God. Have you almost fallen off a cliff while walking on a cliff in the dark of night in the Fiji Islands in the 1970s without a guide and find out the next day you were 3 inches from the edge of a fall down into the ocean? I have. Have you ever been hit by a car when you were 11 years old and bounced onto the sidewalk and think you died, but you didn't? I have. Have you ever choked on a piece of bread and then expelled a piece of bread and come back to life? I haven't. You see what I'm saying? God can change your fate in the blink of an eye. You could be talking to your girlfriend, your wife could be talking to you. The next minute, you could fall over dead on the table. And you could be resuscitated by the EMTs if they get there fast enough. There was a guy in my neighborhood, his local community club. He was drinking. He flew F-104. He flew Phantoms in Vietnam. He flew 200 missions in combat. Never got shot down. He was having a drink, and he fell to the floor. Lucky for him, there was an EMT in the room, a nurse in the room, a doctor in the room, and they resuscitated him and saved him. I met him the other day. We're not there, I'd be dead. God can change your fate in the blink of an eye. So what does this mean? It means be thankful for God and remember you didn't create yourself. How many times do I have to tell you that story about the hobo that I met some odd years ago, 30 years ago in the streets of San Francisco? Not a bum, not disheveled. I didn't know who he was. I used to strike up conversations with strangers years ago, not anymore. You're the only strangers I strike up conversations with. So there was this guy with a shock of white hair and piercing blue eyes. It was dark. It was nighttime, not black of night, maybe 10 o'clock at night, North Beach. And the streets were lively. And I started talking with him. And I said to him one thing or the other. And I said, you need a lift? I'll give you a ride. And he said, yes, I'm going down to I think the 5th Street freeway. I don't remember, wherever it was. So I gave him a ride. And as he got out of the car to get onto the highway to hike south to wherever he was going, I looked in his God, and he looked back at me, not a smile, but with a statement. And he said, I didn't create myself. And he left the car. And I said, that answered the whole question forever. Yeshua Hashem, Keref Ayin, in the blink of an eye. A righteous man falls down 7 times and gets up. King Solomon, Proverbs 24:16. A righteous man falls down 7 times and gets up. The Torah defines someone who is righteous, not as someone who has succeeded, but someone who has persevered. So what is righteousness? Trying to do what's right, trying to survive, getting up from failure, and keep moving forward. Always keep moving forward. Always keep swimming. Many of us don't even know what we're living for because we haven't even lived. We have no idea why we're on earth. We keep hearing in the darkest of our thoughts when we can't go on, there must be a reason for this. God, what a reason? They don't even say God anymore. If they said God, what's the reason? They get an answer, but they don't. They go to a psychiatrist and says, God, what's the reason for my existence? And he says, here, take this pill and come back next week for $700. That's your reason for existence. I know a guy in England who's been in therapy for over, 50 years. A rich boy born into money, never worked a day in his life, plays tennis, travels, miserable, horrible. His father was a remarkable man, and unfortunately, the son never amounted to anything. Dabbled in writing, wrote a few books, never took off. He thinks he's a genius. I'm not mocking the guy. He's been in therapy for 50 years. I don't know how many days a week. He goes and talks to some quack in London. I have no idea what the quack is for because he's still a nutcase. Is it all for the good? Why do you speak? Why did God give you the power of speech? Why are you afraid to make a decision? Because you're afraid of making a mistake. The failure to make a decision is one of life's biggest mistakes. You need to take risks. Now I'll quote Albert Einstein. Einstein said there are two things that are infinite: the universe and man's stupidity. And I'm not sure about the universe. Albert Einstein. I get a kick out of smart people. Few things make me smile. Dogs make me smile. Watching a flock of pelicans fly over in front of my eyes make me smile inside. Children always make me smile. There are two things that are infinite: the universe and man's stupidity, and I'm not sure about the universe. If you want to meet a princess guy, make yourself into a prince, someone said. You can't meet a wife, you can't meet a princess, because you're not a prince. Make yourself into a prince, you'll meet the princess. Life is a series of problems to be solved. Every day you get up, you're going to have problems. You're going to have problems every day. And that is life, is solving those problems. Now, one of the sayings I love the most is from the Ethics of the Fathers, from Hillel the Great. He says, if I'm not for me, who will be for me? Meaning, that's a selfish view. If I am not for me, who will be for me? But if I'm only for myself, what am I? And then they add in, if not now, when? I don't understand that part of it myself. But you have to be for yourself. You have to be selfish, but not only for yourself. Because then you're not a whole person. But you have to be selfish to survive in this world, but not only for yourself. Ethics of the Fathers, Ben Zoma wrote, who is wise? One who learns from every man. I've always tried to follow that since I read it as a young man. I try to learn from every man. Unfortunately, most men are vacuous. They have nothing to teach me. So I stopped talking to strangers. I found out that the lights were on and nobody was home. Who is strong? One who overpowers his inclinations. Who is rich? One who is satisfied with his lot. Who is honorable? One who honors his fellows. Ben Zoma, Ethics of the Fathers. Great proverb. Who is wise? One who learns from every man. Maybe. Who is strong? One who overpowers his inclinations. 100%. Who is rich? One who is satisfied with his lot. That's % true. How many of you know people with wealth? Maybe not great wealth, but wealth, who are miserable human beings. They never smile. They're miserable. Everything's wrong. Nothing's right. The food doesn't taste good. The air stinks. The water is polluted. The society is no good. And a rich man. Why? Because he's a miserable guy. He's not satisfied with his lot. And yet we've met people who are not rich. Not always. I've met them. They say to you, I'm content. I own my house. I paid it off because I worked for 50 years. I have a lovely wife for the last 70 years, 60, 50 years. We have a good marriage. We have wonderful children. They're satisfied with their lot. They're happy inside. Who is honorable? One who honors his fellows. That's a tough one. Most of us don't honor anybody. We've grown up at a time where there is no honor, by the way. Yeshua Hashem keheref ayin. The salvation of God is like the blink of an eye. What does that mean? It means no matter how bleak your life is, your salvation could be right around the corner. God can change everything in the blink of an eye. Teaches us to have what? Come on. You're in a graduate seminar now. What does it teach you? To have hope. To have hope. Redemption can come at any moment for anybody. Have hope. It's good to have hope. I'll say it again because I had to say it in that movie role that I did a few weeks ago. I learned it. I think the whole reason God sent me down there was to learn this ways for my own life. Yeshua Hashem Keref Ayin. The salvation of God is like the blink of an eye. He can change your fate in the blink of an eye. Lefum zara agra, according to the effort is the reward. Ben hihi. It doesn't matter where you start on the ladder of life. It matters how many rungs you've climbed. That is the true measure of you as a person. President Coolidge said, nothing in this world can take the place of perseverance or persistence. Talent will not. Many people have talent, and unfortunately, they're failures in life. It's sad to watch. If you go into a fine hotel and you listen to a piano player, a lobby pianist, sometimes I've listened to them and with tears inside for that person. I realize what it took for that man or that woman to play the piano so beautifully. I can't play the piano. I can't play any instrument. I have no capacity for music. I love music. I can feel music. Music makes me dance inside or makes me cry inside, but I can't play an instrument. I don't understand music. It's another language. Those who know music and have the language of music, I admire them. But why do some wind up in a symphony, playing in a symphony, and others wind up playing in a lobby of a hotel to people who aren't even listening to them? I don't know. Is it luck? Did they not fight hard enough? Talent you could have. Nothing is more common than the unsuccessful person with talent. It's very sad. The world's filled with talented people who are unsuccessful. They're very unhappy people. It's very sad. Genius will not save you. In fact, unrewarded genius can be considered a proverb. Education will not save you. The world is filled with educated derelicts or bums. Filled with educated bums. Persistence, determination are what is omnipotent and drives you. But we cannot do anything without God's help. Without God's help, without faith in God, all of it doesn't matter. How many times have you seen, and I love to watch fights. I've told you this since I'm a child. And I've always noticed that both sides of the corner, you'll see them both praying to the same God to kill the other guy and knock the other guy out. I never knew how that worked. But many fighters have faith. Many of the greatest fighters, they're not cynics about where they get their inner chi from. Study the Chinese, chi energy. They'll tell you what chi energy is. I have chi energy, not to fight, but to think and to project. Project chi energy. Chi energy comes from the wind, the stars, the air, the sun and the moon. Comes from watching birds. Comes from playing with a dog. It comes from hugging a cat. It comes from talking to a pet parakeet. It comes from watching fish swim inside a tank. It comes from growing flowers. It comes from listening to bees humming in a hive. It comes from tending to the fields. It comes from the flocks that you tend to. All God's work. If you're not a better person tomorrow than you are today, what need have you for tomorrow? Asked Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. If you're not a better person tomorrow than you are today, what need have you for tomorrow? What are you living for? Asked Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. The purpose of our life in some ways is to improve our character traits slightly each day. Work on yourself every day. And if someone gets you angry, and if, let's say, a family member makes you unhappy, they don't honor you properly, they pay no attention to you, they ignore you despite all you've done for them, pray for them. That's all you can do. You don't get angry at them. It's not going to change them. They don't even know what you're thinking. Getting angry, you're driving in a car, someone cuts you off, you can get mad at the person, they don't know you're mad. What good does that do? It doesn't do any good. They don't know you're mad. You want to get a lunatic, pull up next to him, start screaming, he'll pull out a gun, and you'll pull out a gun. Great, that's what you need. Yes, so the old thing, the old adage of the self-help movement. If you're not a better person tomorrow than you are today, then what need have you for tomorrow? Asked Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Improve your character slightly every day. Just slightly. Not a great thing to, not hard to do. Not hard to do. So I hope that this little meeting today on benevolent dictatorship, which I didn't talk about other than mentioning it, because in mentioning it, I already talked about the whole subject. It's interesting. By saying benevolent dictatorship and getting your attention in order to bring you into the spiritual realm, I already did the first part by doing the second part. The first part was to lead you into the second part, I realized. And the first part answers itself. It doesn't even have to be discussed. Benevolent dictatorship. Is Trump a benevolent dictator? He's trying to stop a war, and the left wing around the world doesn't want the war to stop. They want more death and destruction. He's trying to stop crime in Washington, D.C., and they're hating him for it. They want crime. They like the crime. It's a good thing to have crime. It's good to see ladies mugged and raped and stores broken into and bums laying in the street. That's a good thing to the psychopath. And he's the bad one. In California, we on the conservative or Republican side have like 4 seats. And the governor wants to take away the 4 seats in the name of democracy. I love it. In order to save democracy, we have to destroy the remnant of democracy in California. Gavin, come on, man. This is the biggest mistake you ever made. Are you crazy? 40% of the state is conservative, and we have 4 people in Congress or something like that. I don't know, 12 out of a number, very small percentage. And you want to take them away from us, and you think we're going to vote for that? You really are really losing it, my friend. Wow. Benevolent dictatorship. So I think that concludes the discussion for today. I wish I could stay with you longer, but I have nothing more to say. If this was a radio show, I'd go to break right now, come back with some music, and then I would open the line up to callers, and I would ask you this question. And you can comment. I can see you up there. Has your life been changed in the blink of an eye? Yes or no, and how? Put it up there. I'll read it. I'll make believe it's a show like that, because I can see what you say. You have a few seconds to do it. Has God changed your life in the blink of an eye? If so, how and when? What were the circumstances? It'd be a great phone call, but I don't do radio anymore. That's in my rearview mirror. I would say 26 years was enough. It was time to go and move into podcasting. I have the best podcast in the entire business. There are people with much bigger shows who are stupid. They're just stupid. They're meatheads. They have nothing to say. There's nothing that they ever said you'll ever remember. Nothing. There are people on who babble about nothing, and yet they have huge audiences. That's called mass media. It's okay. I have 500 episodes. Each one is a Persian miniature. I never do anything unless it matters. In broadcasting, I've tried to make everything that I've done a Persian miniature. Sometimes they're better crafted than others, but they're all experts. They're all excellent, excuse me. There we go. This is a sad one. Yes, when my baby passed away. Blessings and sadness to you. May God give you the power of healing. Yes, sad. The saddest thing is to lose a child. Worse than losing a child is to have a child born who is deformed or handicapped and can't function. We lived through that. My mother, my father, and I as a child, the brother. There's nothing that you can ever do for that person. It's horrible. And you ask yourself over and over again, why did God punish us this way? And then you blame each other if you're the parents. It's a terrible thing to happen. Losing a child is terrible also. Being fired from a job will change your life in the blink of an eye. Right, I've had it happen. Not getting hired even though you're the most competent because of your race. I've had that happen. But when bad things happen, you have to really dig down deeply inside yourself to go on without giving up, without breaking inside. And I found many things at the time helped me when the so-called affirmative action denied me my birthright. They stole my birthright from me with affirmative action. Later, it became DEI. And I was so broken inside. I didn't know if I could go on. And I started reading into areas I never read before. And I found the Chinese phrase. And I found a phrase with a little self-help book in the 1970s. There were lots of self-help books in the 70s. And one of them said that the Chinese do not have a word. They have two words called opportune difficulty or a difficult opportunity. They didn't have the single word. What's the single word that we have? They don't even have it in their vocabulary. So if something confronts you that you think is insurmountable, like not getting a job you know you're the most qualified for, it's a difficult opportunity for you, an opportune difficulty. Just keep running those through your head, and you'll come up with a solution. I did. I wound up in radio with a 26-year career. Now, these years, whatever God has given far after that, rather than what I thought I was chosen for. So God has plans for all of us. Here's some things coming up now that are very sad. I'll have to back up and see them. Colorectal cancer diagnosis a few years ago. Also, a few years ago, says Joseph, a terrible accident that happened to my daughter that left her a different person due to a traumatic brain injury. It's very sad, Joseph. Very sad. That was your best show ever. Talked about the day. Can't do it. The day they took your brother away. I'll never talk about that again. Yes, husband committed suicide with me there. Oh, my God. Judith, I'm so sorry. That's a terrible thing to happen, committing suicide in front of a spouse. Yes, I had stage 2 colon cancer, Michael. Terrible. Terrible. So people are responding, and they're saying things like, we don't realize how lucky we are when we are normal. That's right. That's why children are supposed to be happy. Children are supposed to be happy. You give them their happiness. Don't steal their happiness or innocence from them. Another man, James, says, I quit drinking alcohol, quit smoking cigarettes, have a home, a good job, adopted a dog, deleted fake friends from my life, all at 4 years. Beautiful things. Ignoring negative urges is the best I can do with God's help. Beautiful. When I was 7, I got hit by a truck. What's this? Well, there's a lot of stuff coming in. Man says, I'm an Iraq war veteran. I've seen death and destruction. My mother just had a brush with death on Friday, massive heart attack. Sorry, Juarez. Sorry, Juarez. Yeah. A lot of things happen to us. My life, what is this? Joseph Weinstein says, my life was changed when I first heard Michael Savage on the radios in yeshiva. Blessings to you, Joseph, that you have God's word and Michael's word. Michael's just a talker who spreads some good messages sometimes, sometimes not. Michael's an imperfect soul. Michael's a man like all others. Sometimes Michael is capable of greatness. Sometimes Michael is not. Sometimes Michael gets vulgar. Sometimes Michael gets angry. Sometimes Michael doesn't have much to say. Jethro says, hubris changed my life in a blink. God lets me realize I effed up before things got out of control. Good for you. Your book of Savage Nation changed my life for me. I once was blind, but now I see. Yeah, thank you. Just got 2 jobs after getting fired. A lot of people out there carrying a lot of pain and a lot of hope. Here's a funny one in a way, guys. As my goldfish jumped out of a bowl and my cat got him. That's very Zen. I like that one. That's almost like that's comedic in a way. My goldfish jumped out of a bowl and my cat got him. That's like Chin's 33 Happy Moments and the Importance of Living by Lin Yu Tang. I read that to you many times. Life consists of the simple things. That's actually funny. It's funny in a way. It's only a goldfish. Don't cry for the goldfish. Terry says her sadness is her son was sent to prison. Sorry, Terry. There's nothing we can say other than he'll be out one day. Let's see, one more. On April 3rd, 1993, says Robert Dubril, I bowed my knee to the King of King Jesus, as Daniel prophesies. I accepted God's forgiveness and repented. In English, we call his name Jesus. My life changed significantly. I love that. I love that. I love people who have such faith. We all have a cross to bear at some time in our life. Ray says, I got sober 13 years back, and finding your radio show helped me keep going and change my life. Thank you, Dr. S. Thank you very much for being with me for all these years. My dog died a few years ago in her sleep, feeling sad and want to cry all the time. But she died in her sleep. You didn't have to put her down. You don't know how lucky you are. One of the worst days of my life was taking my beloved dog, Teddy, and letting a vet euthanize him in my arms. I'll never do that again as long as I live. I'd rather euthanize the vet. Johnny says he lost an only adult child. Poison. Horrible. Donza says, I think serving in Iraq changed me because after that I became very easily satisfied. I get it. I get it. The blink of an eye. You saw what happens, blink of an eye. You're with your buddy, a bullet comes and he's dead and you're alive. So you say, okay, we're breathing. Thank you. Yeshua's Hashem. Keref Ayin. Dallard says, I have PTSD and social anxiety. Married later in life. I have a beautiful daughter who graduated with honors. Social anxiety is not that uncommon. Being with yourself is not so bad. Who says you have to have a social life? Where's that written? Maybe it's good to be alone with one person or alone. It doesn't matter. Not everyone's made for dancing at a ball every day. Okay. So I think Hannah Stein says, I'm a disabled veteran, seen too much in the military, but grateful for what God gives to me. I have hope for this republic and this world, but we need to go through hard times to actually see this. I'm afraid we're going to go through really hard times soon. You're the best. Tony Cruz says you're the best. To listening to you is like taking a medicine for your brain. Been taking your medicine for 20 years. Thank you, Tony. You've helped me become closer to God, Michael. You're a blessing, says Michelle Hughes. Another one says, what you're saying is that every cloud or terrible event can have a silver lining. Life is a learning experience. Deal with it and grow a better person. Why are only 80 people watching, Michael? Well, it's not 80, whatever it is. It is what it is. You know, I got to talk about that for 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Gregory says, I missed your great stories of one-armed Frank, Mama Savage, and your used clothes. You know, I'm thinking about my childhood stories, which are, where's the, I don't, it's in one of my autobiography books. So I think of all the stories I've written about my childhood, Dead Man's Pants says it all better than any of them. I actually did wear Dead Man's Pants as a child. We were poor. I don't mean rag poor, but we were poor. And I did wear Dead Man's Pants. I didn't know. I didn't like them that much, but I wore them. Okay, at least they were pants and they kept me warm and dry. I didn't care that much about that. Today, no one has to wear Dead Man's Pants. There is so much food and so much clothing in America. We don't know what to do with it. We give it away in Goodwill and bins. People think that they're doing something good by going through their closets and throwing away clothing to an imaginary person who needs it. I don't even know where it all goes. They don't even need it in the third world anymore. I don't know where all the clothing came from. I don't understand where all the rags go. But I actually wore Dead Man's Pants. Clothing was expensive when I was a kid. It's a long time ago. I'm not going to tell the story again. But I'm thinking, so like, if I were to do one movie about my life, if I were to become the producer of my own movie and play a role in it, I'm actually going to approach the folks I appeared in that scene with to do the movie. They don't know this yet. Pardon me. I never had allergies like this. Late August, I still have allergies. I've never seen anything like. Yeah, I know it's climate change. I get it. So the one title of this movie would be Dead Man's Pants. And it would be like my childhood. I'd play my father, the gruff father. I don't know who would play me as a child. I'd have to have three actors. Dead Man's Pants would be me as a kid. Then as a boy, I suppose, two actors. There have to be two of me, two actors for those roles. Because the book moves through a series, where I start out as a kid wearing the Dead Man's Pants, and I become a teenager working in the Catskill Mountains, watching Fat Al make the tuna with the Italian arm, the 50-inch arm, the hair in it in the tuna, your cigarette falling into the tuna fish. I told that story. Love that. People love Fat Al's tuna. Those are the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end. Yeah, well, that's the movie I think I want to make. I've never made a movie, but I think I could fund one and play one part in it. That'd be a fun thing to do. I'm gonna do that one. Maybe I'll do it. It'll be called Dead Man's Pants. Not coming to a theater near you. People, you don't even have to make a movie for theaters anymore. You just make it. It goes up on video. You could put it together with AI. My friend Dan said that he does little videos of himself now with AI. You do a couple of scenes and you talk, and then you write a script. I don't know how that works. Seems so fake to me. It's like Viagra sex. Those kind of an AI movie is like Viagra sex. I never talked about that. I think I'll stay away from it today. But I have a question about it. Isn't taking erectile dysfunction drugs, isn't that faking it? Did you ever think maybe you don't really want sex? Why are you forcing yourself to have sex with an erectile drug? I don't understand it. Maybe you're just not into that person. Maybe you're gay. I mean, what do you need a drug for? Why do you have to prove anything? This whole thing, I've never even thought about that. How have erectile dysfunction drugs, which were created by chance, how have they changed the world for the better or for the worse? It's all fake sex, love. You could argue that you do love the person you're with, but you can't perform. And so it enables you to make love, and therefore it's a positive thing. I suppose you could say that. But you could love a person without having sex, too. Or you could love a person without having genital sex, if you want to get into it. Sex is much more than genital sex. Now I'm getting into the Dr. Ruth side. I could do that. I know a lot about a lot of things. At a certain point in life, you've learned a lot about a lot of things. But this whole erectile, all this Viagra and Levitra, the women know you're faking it. Now they have the 2-minute thing. You take it's like a combo job. It's like a mixture of this one and that one, and you get the fake feeling. I mean, I don't understand it. We're almost robotic already. What do we need AI for? Most men are already AI. They're robotic to begin with, most men. Rigid, robotic. Women know that. I going down that road. I won't go down that road. So now you add the pills to it. So that you add the pill to the robot. And what do you have? I'll let you finish the sentence for me. I'm going to get the childhood book for a minute. Then I'm going to end. I want to talk another 5 minutes. Then I need to have a cup of coffee. It's early in the morning for me. I don't want to do a thing. I'm looking for the book. I cannot find. Can you hear me talking while I'm here? I'm looking for the childhood storybook for you because I'm in the mood to read some childhood stories. Bear with me. And when I need it, I can't find it. Would you believe it? Okay, I can't find it. I have all my books and I cannot find my childhood storybook. Isn't that something? Here it is. I got it. A Savage Life. This is still in print, by the way. But I want to tell you something else. It's a preview of what's coming. I didn't mean to even talk about it. I was going to save that for another show. Now, here's a third show or a fifth show today or a 10th show today. I wrote a book in the 1980s called Reducing the Risk of Alzheimer's, which I've recently reviewed over and over again with recent studies on potential new drugs for Alzheimer's. My book was 40 years ahead of its time, and I'm going to reprint it. I have 2 publishers who want to reprint it. I was 45 years ahead of my time, And I'm going to talk about it at another time with an entire broadcast when the book comes back out. I wanted to bring the book back out because it was ahead of its time by so many years. It's been long out of print. I put my life into this, and some of my best friends had such good things to say about it. Dr. W's program is currently the best strategy for reducing this dread disease, said Robert F. Cathcart III, MD. Richard Cunyon, rest in peace, MD, said Dr. W's book does the best job yet of showing the potential dangers of aluminum, a mineral heretofore regarded as harmless and thus allowed access to our foods and our medicines. Now we find it as yet another pollutant that may be doing us in. Its correction is a matter of choice, your choice. Dr. W gives you the facts to help make that choice rational, effective. Thank you, Richard, from heaven. Dr. Abraham Hoffer, MD, PhD, one of the greatest scientists that ever lived, who you never heard of, said, reducing the risk of Alzheimer's is a very valuable contribution to the literature. I recommend that everyone not following these nutritional orthomolecular principles, especially if there is a family history, should read this book and take its message very seriously. Wow, I didn't know Hoffer even wrote that. So it was largely about the dangers of the neurotoxicity of aluminum and how we're getting it in through underarm deodorants and cooking ware and foods. But I have discovered that there are elements that fight aluminum, or compete with aluminum rather, for access to our tissues. And that's what I'm going to be adding to this book. It's going to have a new introduction on the newer discoveries that are coming out now in science that are so phenomenal that book will be out soon. I just stumbled on it because I'm talking to two publishers who want to do it. It won't sell big because it just won't. But it's important for you to have, and when it's out, I'll let you know. So I'm going to end with, see Dead Man's Pants. I started with A Savage Life. I contacted the publisher the other day, and it sold like 12 copies last year or something like that. I don't know why they keep it in print, because I was trying to get the rights back to the book, and they keep it in print with nothing. So I went to the show. So here I am with Dead Man, really wearing Dead Man's Pants. See, with Aunt Beulah. I really did wear Dead Man's Pants. Pictured it with my realist Russian aunt. Dead Man's Pants. It's a great story. There I am as a weightlifter before I got my ass kicked out in Long Beach. Me at 15, trying to look tough during my weightlifting phase. It's an interesting book. I think I'm just going to conclude by reading Dead Man's Pants and then say goodbye. How's that for the day? I mean, if you're listening, you want entertainment this morning. I get it. It's 9:30 on the West Coast. It's 12:30 on a Sunday. You could watch sports or something like that. I'm on TV tonight on Newsmax TV. By the way, plugging myself. Show's doing very well. Thank you. Every Sunday night, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 Eastern. I know you have to subscribe. Go and subscribe. They did a biopic of me, by the way. It took a long time to produce. It's the greatest thing that I've seen in my life about me. And of course, it's about me, and I like it. I'd lie to you like I play humble, like I don't like. I did like it. It was great. The filmmaker was a genius. You have to subscribe to Newsmax to see it. I have no other way to offer it to you. I don't own the rights. They do. So where's this Dead Man's Pants? Here it is, 179. It's nicely written, and I'll end with it because it's cheerful. Oh. You ready? Okay. Growing up in the Bronx, as I did, the man-child in the promised land, I didn't have many of the luxuries most kids. Hold it a minute. Let me shut off the lower monitor. It's too bright. It's blinding my eye. There. Okay. Better lighting. Growing up in the Bronx, as I did, the man-child in the promised land, I didn't have many of the luxuries most kids with their hats on backwards take for granted today. My father was an immigrant. He worked his fingers to the bone. We simply didn't have the money to afford more than the basics. So, as you might expect, I cherished and took care of the things I had. As a kid, I'd line up my shoes under my bed at night, neat like in the military. I made sure they were polished. I'm sure some shrink today would say I suffer from ADD or other compulsive disorder and should have been put on a regimen of Ritalin or another drug. Okay, that's true. I wonder what they'd say about the fact that through most of my youth, I wore secondhand pants from dead men. Most of the pants I wore as a preteen came off of stiffs and were cut down to fit me. Don't get me wrong. My father was a good man. He ran a small antique store with mostly 19th century stuff. On the side, at least in the beginning, he sold used goods as well. A man's got to do what a man's got to do to make ends meet, right? Occasionally, he would go to an auction after a man died and buy the entire estate. The dishes, the mirrors, the clocks, whatever the man had, the pants, the shirts, the whole deal, you get the picture. Back at the store, as he sorted the stuff he bought for resale, he'd take a closer look at the clothing. And once he got a hard shafter and marked suit from a dead man, now what's he going to do with it? Toss it in the garbage like they do today? In those days, it wasn't in and throw out a good worsted fabric. Instead, he brought home the pants to me. I remember my father called me to the bedroom and showed them to me like the head tailor at Sachs department store, and he'd say, "Now, Michael, get a good look at the fabric." I wanted to vomit. I got a migraine because I knew what was coming. "Take a look at the quality of this fabric." He's working me like a salesman. He's unrolling the pants on the bed. I can see it to this day. He says, "You can't get fabric like this anywhere." I wanted to say, "Of course not, Dad. They only sell stuff like that for men who died." You know, it was like special clothing for the undertaker. Even if I had said something that wouldn't have changed anything. He'd go downtown and the pants would come back fit for me, shortened without the legs taken in properly. They were cut off at the knees. They ended up baggy like an Abbott and Costello pair of pants. Even if they had fit me properly, there was something repugnant about the whole idea. Like I said, I knew how to make do with whatever was at hand. There's an old saying, the man with no shoes complains until he meets the man with no feet. Years later, the fact that I didn't have much more than a place to sleep in my first little apartment after college was okay with me. At least I wasn't wearing dead man's pants. Little did I know that one day those awful pants would serve as a metaphor for the shift in my political orientation. You might find it interesting that I wasn't always an independent conservative. I was raised in a Democrat blue-collar home. My dad was a Democrat. My mom was a Democrat. Most of my relatives are still Democrats. To an immigrant family whose parents came of age during the Great Depression, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the great white savior. Aside from being the only U.S. president reelected to office 3 times, he gained lasting political mileage with the relief that his New Deal offered. As you might expect then, my father used to tell me, "Michael, all I know is this. The Democrats are for the little guy and the Republicans are for big business." In a way, his attempts to sell me on the political leanings of the Democrat Party was no different than his sales job with the dead man's pants. He was selling me a failed ideology that should have been buried long ago. So as a young man, not seeing things as clearly as I do now, I voted as my dad did since I didn't understand politics. But as I grew older, that view would change completely. The turning point in my thinking can be traced back to my first job out of college as a social worker in the Upper West Side of New York. All of my so-called clients were minorities. Now, I was a good liberal at the time, having had my brain washed at one of the city universities in New York by a whole slew of European immigrants who, instead of kissing the ground when they got here, urinated on the sacred soil and the flag and immediately sought to instill communist philosophy in the minds of the young. Oh, yeah. I didn't know at the time any of that. I was just a wide-eyed liberal kid with an eye on changing the world. There I was, fresh out of Queens College, having minored in sociology. I figured I'd take a job as a social worker to save the oppressed minority. I was always an idealist. I still am, as a matter of fact. But as the abuses of the welfare system that I saw back then nauseated me and started me on my slow road to recovery, day after day, as a welfare worker, I found person after person who was working, who had a job, but who claimed they didn't so they could get their government handout. Worse, they knew they were ripping off the welfare system and didn't bat an eye. How can I be so sure those hucksters weren't swindling Uncle Sam? I mean, you could argue that they were oppressed and didn't know the rules, not me. At a young age, I learned a valuable lesson on how to spot people who smiled to your face while robbing you blind the second your back was turned. The next story about Sam the Butcher is a perfect example. And that concludes Dead Man's Pants and today's discussion with you, which has come a long way from the topic at hand. Benevolent Dictator, and your life can change in the blink of an eye. And I'll close with the saying that you should never forget. Yeshuas Hashem, Karef Ayin, Ayin I. God can change your fate in the blink of an eye. Therefore, worship God. Pray to God. Pray God to give you good fate. Pray God to give you good luck. Pray to God because you are not God. You're only a man. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear and you hear what you like, subscribe. Because as I've said to you before, and I'll say it again, I don't do these on a regular basis. I do them only when I'm inspired and want to do them, or I have a mission to do them. Today it was a mission. Today is the God Talk Day. I didn't want to do this today. But as I looked out the window at the seagulls and at the pelicans, I said, it's pretty empty out there, Michael. Fill it with what God has given you. Give it to others, that they may go forward with some hope for the day and perhaps help others. God bless you. God bless America. And may God bless Donald Trump with the right decisions for this nation and the world. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.